What's up, everybody? I'm John Middlekauff. You know what I need you to do. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We got content for days reacting to every NFL game all the time, every single day. Subscribe, like the videos. Let's go. Okay, the Buffalo Bills and the referees spoil Jeff Ulbrich and Aaron Rodgers' valiant attempt at a victory on Monday Night Football. The Bills snap a little losing streak and win the game 23-20. The Jets fall to 2-4. Now have a short week playing the Steelers on Sunday Night Football in Pittsburgh. Safe to say it's must-win time or the season might be all she wrote. But the story of the game, obviously, were the Zebras, who were a complete embarrassment, just a bananas game. I mean, that was... We'll dive into it. We'll dive into it. I think I'm going to save the penthouse and the outhouse for tomorrow, just because we had so much going on with just Sirianni and McCarthy, some other stuff in the NFL, Stefanski, Harbaugh almost has a heart attack or a little heart scare. Now he's got to wear a heart monitor, and he just keeps on ticking, and he wins, and that's what he did in Denver. And so we'll have a mailbag out a little bit tomorrow as well. So a lot of content, a lot of stuff going on. I mean, Monday Night Football, Bills, Jets, kind of reminded me of my childhood or something. Just a good Northeast matchup, Monday Night Football. But gosh, the referees. Before we dive in to the game, I need to tell you about my friends, my partners, and the official ticketing app of this podcast. As you guys know, just went to a game on Saturday, and it was because of these guys. And I've been using this ticketing app for a long time. There is not an app that is easier to use in terms of searching for the event you want, searching for a team that you want to go to see, and then once you find out the game or event you want to see, choosing the price point you're looking for. It gives you incredible visuals of what it's going to look like from your seats. So when you get there, one, you know kind of the range of what you want to spend. You know exactly how it's going to look. I've done it on so many different events, whether it be concerts, whether it be games, all sports, NBA, hockey, football. And when you get there, it's like, I already know this is exactly going to be my view because Game Time is that great. Download the app. Do it right now. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app. Create an account. Use the code JOHN for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account. Redeem the code JOHN for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. You know what's sad about tonight is I wish I could dive in to Aaron Rodgers' gritty performance. Josh Allen and the Bills shoving the ball down the Jets' throat in the first half and taking a page out of Kyle Shanahan and take control of the game. The craziness that was the end of the first half and then the start of the second half. The actual football. Because that's why most people listening spent 3 hours of their night on Monday and do every week to watch football. I don't know how many people fit in MetLife, 65, 70,000 people that pay a boatload of money. These tickets are not cheap. Anyone that uses that Game Time app knows. That's why you get a little discount. It's expensive to go to these games. And the referees, and listen, officiating, I'll be the first to admit, I understand it's difficult. In the NBA, in the NFL, baseball, there's not an excuse that you just go to RoboUmp, but I get it. That's why we got replay. And I get that they get a lot of pressure from the league office. We got to protect the quarterbacks. Totally for it. This league is built on us turning it on and not having to watch backup quarterbacks. We want to watch Aaron Rodgers versus Josh Allen. I get it. But there has to be a line. And tonight I felt we didn't cross the line. We burned that line fucking down and jumped the shark, and it was borderline unwatchable. It honestly made me really mad. I love football. I've dedicated my professional life to working in it and talking about it. I would be doing this in terms of watching all these games, whether I sold insurance or dug ditches. And I would be just as angry if I was doing that as I am doing this. That was such a major FU to the coaches who are coaching for their jobs. Obviously, one guy literally just got fired last week. And if the Jets don't win, All these guys are going to get shit canned. It's over. Every single one of them. Now, listen, I'm not saying I feel bad for them in the sense that most of them are making a ton of money, but they still have to uproot their family. It's a pain in the ass. And there are some guys on the staff not making that much, which sucks. The players that bust their ass training 365 to put on a show for us. These calls that, like, these roughing the passer calls, I think it's pretty clear what one is and what one is not now. And it's pretty clear when a guy falls on a quarterback, like that happened to Aaron Rodgers, like that happened to Josh Allen, when it's a violent, aggressive move. I get it. Even if I'm not quite comfortable with it, I was cool with the 80s and the 90s, but the money has changed, the league has changed, the concussion lawsuits. I understand it. Tonight was a joke. Those two calls, and obviously there were 700 million other calls, borderline ruined that game, which there was a ton on the line. Aaron Rodgers is literally kind of playing for his career. Do you think Aaron Rodgers is going to play anymore if this team wins 6 or 7 games? You think he's like, I'll come back? I have a theory. I think he'll like kind of pull a Brett Favre this offseason if that's the case. But like there was obviously a lot on the line for the Jets tonight. The Bills have just looked like crap the last 2 weeks, have dominated this division, needed this game just to get back on track, to get rolling. And both those two calls had just major ramifications on the game. Honestly, those specific two calls, and there were a million other crappy ones, could have dictated the outcome of the game. And listen, Javon Kinlaw, if I was the Jets, I would cut him tomorrow. But that's not about the penalties. It's because he's a terrible football player. If you play Javon Kinlaw, who, I got news for you, is a Robert Saleh guy, and I would imagine Jeff Ulbrich, who does not control the roster, will want him off the roster tomorrow. But that's because when you put him on the field, he will get dominated. Awful draft pick by the 49ers. Major whiff. Why he's on the Jets, because they didn't want him anymore. But to call a penalty in pro sports, this drives me nuts in the NBA. When you tee me up for saying screw you or F you, like this ain't Little League. This ain't even college. This is a multi-billion-dollar business where we're all fighting for our professional lives. And if I say something that might quote unquote cross the line, for you to throw a 15-yard unsportsmanlike conduct, that just cannot happen. It's simply unacceptable. Tonight was a complete embarrassment for the NFL. And I get it. Roger and the people at the league office don't give a shit. You know why? Because millions of people watched. That money train's going to keep flowing on in. None of it matters. But there's going to come to a point when we turn on Aaron Rodgers, one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, who might be playing in the last season of his career. And this might be one of the last important games because the season might get away from him. And Josh Allen, one of the stars of the league. And that's what we get. Obviously, some of these penalties are justified. I get it. I don't want to see a penalty every play, but the guy holds. It jumped the shark tonight. It felt like these guys lost the plot. And it ruined the game. It simply did. Unless you're a Bills fan, and you should be really happy. Like, that was awful. This is coming from someone who loves this shit. I can't tell you how mad I am right now having to talk about this. It was just a joke. Players get fired, aka cut. Coaches always get fired. GMs get fired. Fans get frustrated because their team sucks. Nothing ever happens to these referees. Why can't tomorrow all 3 of those guys be demoted? We cannot have you guys calling a game. Monday Night Football, Jets, Bills, that's what you roll out? It can't happen. Honestly, I was surprised there were some hits. There was a pass to Garrett Wilson in the end zone, which he kind of caught, and then it got blown up. Thought there would be a penalty there. Thought there would be a penalty on the Taylor Rapp, big hit late in the game. Honestly, I was expecting a penalty on every single play. Not every big hit is a penalty. This is football. This ain't softball. You have to allow people to play football. All these guys know the rules. I say this all the time about college football. Throwing a kid out is the most egregious thing happening in the entire sport right now. Because no one in 2024, this is not 1978. No one's trying to hurt anybody anymore. We all know the rules. Take that fucking rule out. That's a conversation for another day. I can't tell you how disappointed I am that I had to start talking about this, but that's how worked up I am. That was beyond egregious, and it happened over and over and over and over again. It never stopped. It was insane. I don't even know where to start with the game. I mean, the Bills came out today, and Joe Brady, who's rocking that chain, he likes to be a cool guy with the Jordans, came out with the Kyle Shanahan game plan. And all I've heard is like the Jets on defense, the Jets number 2 defense, ran the ball right down their throat. Zone right, zone left, up the gut. And Ray Davis, the 4th-round pick from Kentucky, looked like James Cook 2.0. I mean, they were shredding him. That first drive to go up 7-3, it was like, damn, this Jets team is about to get destroyed. Then the game settled down a little bit. The Jets were in major trouble toward the end of the half. The Bills score with 20 seconds left in the first half. They're also getting the football, right? So they go up 17-20. Or excuse me, it's 13-10. They go up 20-10 with 20 seconds left to go in the first half. I think the half's over. They're going to kick it out, 30-yard line, kind of kneel it, whatever. I go to take out the trash. I walk back in. Sean McDermott's talking. I look up. It's 20-17. Obviously, I rewind. Aikman goes, greatest Hail Mary thrower of all time. They're showing the highlights of the Giants' Hail Mary, the Cardinals' Hail Mary. All of a sudden, that 7 points axed out. Didn't even count because they just canceled each other out. So it went from like, are the Bills going to have 7 points, get the ball back if they score, kick a field goal? That could be a 10 or a 14-point swing. Then the Bills get the ball in the second half, only up 3 points, drive right down the field. Their kicker missed the field goal. So instead of being a 10-point swing, it's a 0-point swing. And then the Jets' next drive, they drive, kick a field goal. The Jets somehow actually gained 3 points. And now we got a 20-20 game. That was insane. Like, honestly, when the Bills scored with 20 seconds left, I thought, you know what? This has got 35 to 20 written all over it. And that little swing was huge. And like ultimately, then the game got weird. The wind started pumping. Zerline's missing field goals. One right, one left. Even Aikman said on the second one, even when you go to the spot or the side that's less windy, it's like a golfer, man. You hit one in the water to the right, couple holes later, there's water on your left, it's in your dome. And Aikman's like, even though like you're going to try to overcompensate, what did he do? He hooked it left. Doink. He doinked 2. And that would have, even if he just hits 1, you got a tie game, maybe the end of the game, we're in overtime. But it's hard to, the game was so discombobulated because of the officiating. There was no flow to it. It's hard to have a huge takeaway like on the Bills specifically. I know their quarterback is elite. And when it came down to it, what happened? Great play call by Joe Brady on the kind of the fake handoff, boom, roll Josh Allen out, first down. He can do that. He made some throws tonight that were awesome. Honestly, they left some on the table. Aaron Rodgers, a little bit of a throwback, hit some incredible passes that were blown up by defenders and dudes dropped it. Even on the last play to Mike Williams that ended up kind of working out as a punt. Now, not really because it was like, well, they got 3 timeouts. They never got the ball back. I don't know if he slipped a little bit. Obviously, Mike Williams slipped. It was just, I was impressed with kind of the Jets' grittiness. I thought tonight and again, they created it with the Hail Mary, which is a little lucky, but it's Aaron Rodgers. It's something he does. And that kind of got him right back in the game. But I thought Rodgers, like, let's face it, at this point in time, like even tonight, he's a good player, but he's no longer a great player. He has moments where, obviously, within the pocket, if he can step into it, he can throw the lasers. I bet Randy Johnson could throw 95 at 40 years old. But it wasn't the same as a 30-year-old guy. This just isn't the same guy. Because there are moments when he tries to scramble, he can't even sniff getting away. And that's evident when you watch the two players. Like, Josh Allen's in a different universe than Aaron Rodgers. Now, relative to what the Jets are used to, like, he's good enough to win. He played winning football tonight, right? He was getting peppered. His toughness was on full display. Like, that's what I wonder about this team. If they lose next week to Pittsburgh, all of a sudden you're 2-5. Aaron laid it all on the line tonight. He has been getting fucking peppered these last couple weeks and keeps getting up and fighting, which I admire. This is a 40-year-old guy worth hundreds of millions of dollars, does not need to be doing this, already has the MVP, Super Bowl championship. Now he's playing for the Jets. Like, this is what, like, the second half of is he going to do this if they're like 4-7? Because if I was him, I'd be like, do I really want to keep? I'm not saying he's going to just tap out and quit on the season, but you're getting the best version of everything he has right now. And this season's about to slip away. They fired Robert Saleh to win this game tonight. Clearly, their offense had a little more pop with Todd Downing. But let's not act like it was that dramatically different. Throwing some back shoulder throws. They made a conscious effort to get Garrett Wilson in the game. Right? And even Joe brought it up in the production meeting. Troy asked, he's like, you think this guy regressed? Almost like, there aren't many guys in these meetings that could just call out Garrett Wilson. Obviously, he didn't do it to Garrett Wilson's face, but he did to the head coach and the quarterback. And you could tell, like, they made an effort to feature him. And he looked good. He was making plays. But, like, that's all. You know, they don't have much other firepower beside him. I know Lazard made a couple plays tonight. Mike Williams is just meh. You know, and it's not like the Bills are rolling out Andre Reed, Stephon Diggs, and Stevie Johnson. Like, their wide receiving crew's okay. Like, kind of a running team. Their defense, the more and more they get these guys back from injury, looked a lot faster tonight. They clearly have a pretty dangerous pass rush. But the one thing with the Jets is, like, their defense can't just smother you. And there were a couple moments tonight when Ulbrich, who's gone from defensive coordinator to the head coach, but he's still calling the defense, 12 men on the field, a little overwhelmed, which is understandable. But that's hard when they were all their chips were in the middle of the table for this game. And when all your chips are in the middle of the table, because you look at the schedule, play Pittsburgh, then they get the Patriots, then they get the Texans. So all of a sudden, like, realistically, lose the Steelers, beat the Patriots, lose the Texans, you do the math. Be 3-6. Like, if you're 3-6, this team, are you kidding me? I don't care what your schedule is. You're not rattling off 4 or 5 straight wins, that squad. No chance. They can rattle off a couple, but you dig yourself too big of a hole. Your team's not good enough. It's not like your coaching staff's super elite. That's why I love the Bills tonight. I said, put all your chips in the middle. Part of the reason I'm angry is because this game should never have been like as discombobulated as it was. Listen, you lose, you lose. You win, you win, but just let them play. And that's what it didn't feel like was happening. So I just think the Jets' defensive line, which used to be dominant, is no longer. Quinnen Williams is an excellent player, but the rest of the crew, meh. Secondary, they just had injuries. So DJ Reed goes down. It's like part of their secondary the last couple of years has been so deep. Well, it's not the same once you start losing starters. And it's just hard to corral Josh Allen because at any moment he can run around and make plays. And he can keep plays alive. It's different than Lamar. It's really probably more like a young Ben Roethlisberger, but he's faster. He can run. And yeah, so I think the Jets season in a weird way kind of unofficially ended tonight because I think they'll end up losing next week at Pittsburgh, and who's got a much better defense than the Bills, and will have no problem consistently running the ball. Like, if you can't stop the run, you don't get to dictate the terms. And they really can't. And the Bills, in a weird way, kind of got away from it as the game got on, as the game kind of got discombobulated. Part of it's penalties. You're in 2nd and 3rd and long. You're less inclined to keep running it with Ray Davis. The way the first half was going, I'm like, Ray Davis is about to go for 170 yards. Looked like Jordan Mason in the first game on Monday Night Football in San Francisco. Kyle's like, I'm just going to run it on you until you guys can stop it. But let's not act like firing Robert Saleh. Like, this is why Belichick keeps shitting on the organization. What's his whole thing? Like, ready, aim, shoot. He just kind of point, fire, right? And that's kind of Woody Johnson, the Jets, just flying aimlessly, even when they give a gritty performance. Like, they're just not the Bills. There's a reason the Bills go to the playoffs every year. Just much better run operation. The roller coaster of an NFL season is moving right along, and it promises to be a month full of tricks, treats, and of course, touchdowns. At DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, is the number one place to bet touchdowns. Running it from the 1 or an 80-yard bomb. We don't care how they score touchdowns. We want to bet on them. DraftKings heard us and is delivering. Ready to place your first bet? Try betting on something simple, like a player to score a touchdown. Go to DraftKings Sportsbook app and make your pick. Here's a reason for new customers to do a touchdown dance of their own. Bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Score big with DraftKings Sportsbook, the number one place to bet touchdowns. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use the code JOHN. That's code JOHN for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. Okay, wanted to hit on a few other things. Let's just do a little umbrella on head coaches, and we're just going to rattle through some things. Obviously, I would say the two most polarizing coaches because of the markets and the teams in which they coach, Sirianni and McCarthy. Sirianni wins, McCarthy loses. Well, let's start with Dallas, who just gets shellacked. I'm sure you've heard the stats about their last 4 home games. I mean, they're just getting massacred. And you could make the argument of, should you have let him coach? Right? It was pretty risky, even though I actually think, comparing the two, I think Mike is proven over a long period of time he's better than Sirianni. Obviously, he won a Super Bowl back in the day, but he can call plays. Like, there is one specific thing he can do: call plays. He's also won the division 2 out of the last 3 years. Now, Nick did have the year where they were the 1 seed and he beat the Giants, and then Purdy got KO'd. Now, he might have won that game regardless. That team was really good, especially their defensive line. But I do think when you look at the Cowboys, I was thinking about this today because I saw this clip that Pardon My Take put out. And Big Cat was like, can you imagine if you would have told Jerry Jones 5-6 years into his ownership of the Cowboys, right? He buys them in, I think, 89. By 1990, the 5 season, so January of 96 or February, he had 3 Super Bowls. And he just had won one kind of his way after kicking Jimmy Johnson to the curb. If you told him you're never going to win another one, more than likely, in the summer of 1996, you are going to die before you ever even make it back to a championship game, let alone win a Super Bowl. He would have laughed in your face. And yesterday, it goes viral right after the game, his press conference. There is not another team in the NFL that after a crazy loss or a crazy win, every single person that covers the team or covers the league that is at the game doesn't want to talk to the head coach, doesn't want to talk to the quarterback or the star wide receiver or the star pass rusher. They want to talk to the owner. Now, in theory, all these other people at all these other games would like to talk to the owners too, but they never talk. Jerry not only holds court, he literally does it every game. And then he does it again on a radio show, I think on Tuesday mornings. But that's just not the healthiest environment. And if I was a betting man, as we sit here right now, especially with the Cowboys injuries, I know they got a bye week, Mike McCarthy probably won't be the head coach. But it is very, very difficult to win when, think about most human beings, like non-athletes or artists. Most people make more money as they get older. If I just gave you the most money you would ever make in a year, which could be in your 50s or 60s, let's just say, and I gave it to you at 22 years old, more than likely 10, 20 years later, if you had been making that much money right from the jump, you'd be a little jaded. And I wonder with Jerry, he had so much success so early because of a genius hire. And he's different than Al Davis. He wasn't a coach, but he played at Arkansas. This guy played college football. It's not like this guy is just some nerd day trader that never put on a jockstrap or wore a helmet. This guy played in college. It's pretty impressive. And then he went on to obviously have a good business career as kind of a maverick and risked it all and bought the team. Jerry's got balls. And it worked. And really, ever since he bought the team and they started rolling, he's been printing money. So win or lose, he's made money. They just haven't really won at all since the mid-90s. Yet he won't really listen to anybody because he had so much immediate success, thinks he knows it all, which again, most owners probably do, but they don't talk every single game. And I wonder if that's just really, really hard to overcome. Now, if Jerry had talked or hadn't talked yesterday, it doesn't matter. The Lions would have eviscerated the defense that had a million injuries. But just big picture with the Cowboys, like, I think it is fair to say it is hard to overcome Jerry Jones, which is weird because he is the big reason, like, the Cowboys brand is so big. But, listen, Mike McCarthy, more than likely at the end of the year, especially if they miss the playoffs, going to get thrown to the Wolves. But nothing will change as long as Jerry's alive. And it does feel a little bit like different circumstances, but Leighton Al Davis's life, it got a little weird, and the difference is Al, not once upon a time, for a long period of time, the 70s, the 80s, the late 90s, when he hired John Gruden, like, he fucking knew what he was doing. He was a football guy who was interwoven his confidence in, I know what I'm doing. Like, Jerry thinks he knows what he's doing. And you can say, well, how can he think that given the results? Because he checks his bank account and he sees the money. And he knows once upon a time, without him, none of this would exist. At least that's what he thinks. So I just think the Cowboys are going to be this roller coaster ride as long as he's around. I would imagine, my guess, I don't know Stephen Jones, but just watching the way he conducts himself, knowing people that have dealt with him in some business deals, I think it'll be a little different once Jerry is gone and Stephen's in charge. In terms of the interviews, in terms of the micromanaging, in terms of just the daily intensity of kind of hovering over. Okay, on Sirianni. He apologized on Monday for his actions at the end of the game, which is stupid in the sense of, like, listen, bro, you did it. You don't need to apologize. It is what it is. An embarrassing moment. Like, who are you apologizing to? It doesn't, to me, how apologies can be so hollow. They're just so unnecessary. Unless you know the people you were screaming at and you can, like, send them a DM, bro. Like, I'll get you free tickets next game. You don't need to apologize to random people who don't give a shit. But it's part of this culture and world we live in. You made a fool of yourself. There's no disputing that, which he has kind of consistently done over the course of his career at different times. But when you're winning, no one cares. And I was thinking about, like, everyone handles winning well. Everyone handles success well. Like, universally, anyone can handle winning success. Some might blow all the money. Some might do stupid stuff. But, like, everyone can handle that and not completely melt down. Most people can't handle adversity, especially most people that haven't been through adversity. Like, it is a lot easier for Mike Tomlin or John Harbaugh or Jim Harbaugh or Pete Carroll or Andy Reid to handle everything that gets thrown at you as a head coach when all of a sudden X, Y, and Z go wrong. Why? You have a ton of experience to rely on. You've kind of seen it all. Nick Sirianni got this job, and it was going really poorly immediately, and made a change. And that change changed the course of his career. Gave the play calling to Shane Steichen. And for a year and a half, that team kicked ass. In the last 2 years, when a lot more has been on his plate, he's kind of shown his true colors. He's in over his head. Now, because this organization has accumulated so much talent, like, you can still find a way to win games. But I heard Michael Lombardi say this on his podcast, and I guess I was kind of mad at myself for not thinking about this yesterday. In his press conference on Sunday, like, he knew he screwed up. He brought his son to the press conference. Well, what happens when you bring your son to the press conference? It's going to lighten the mood. They're not going to, it's not going to be as aggressive as it would be if you were just sitting up there with a 7-year-old sitting on your lap in an Eagles jersey. So, like, he knew immediately, like, this probably isn't a great move. And if someone talked to him today about it, I don't know. But, like, you make a fool out of yourself, which we all can do when we're freaking out, when we don't have the answers. And we've all been there. And sometimes, depending on what you do, there are a lot less stakes on the line when you feel helpless or lost or confused right? And some of us, and I know I do sometimes, I get really aggressive. I get really loud when I get agitated. Now, as you get older and you go through more experiences, you handle that stuff better. It's why you should all be able to handle craziness in your 50s and 60s better than in your 20s and 30s. And Nick, to me, looks like a guy who is swimming in the deep end right now and desperately needs kind of a life jacket and doesn't really know how to swim. And these games are breaking him. And I think him and McCarthy, it's pretty clear, feels like dead man walking. If you could bet on this, which I'm sure you can on DraftKings, neither guy is going to be the head coach for their respective teams in 2025. I almost said 24, but we're in 2024. A guy that should be the head coach in 2025, but let's face it, it's getting really weird. I don't think it has to be a story every single week when Kevin Stefanski says that Deshaun Watson will be the quarterback the following week. Like, can't we all understand? What's he supposed to say? He just got a contract extension. The owner is forcing him to play this guy. It's out of his control. It's not his money that he's paying the guy. I would imagine, I can't fact check this one, that there was some apprehension on Stefanski and Andrew Berry trading for this player once the initial conversations got so crazy. He didn't want to be there unless you gave him the money, and the owner acquiesced. Now, I would also guess that both those guys, the GM and the head coach, thought he would be better than this. He's objectively bad. I saw a Bill Barnwell tweet today. Since 2007, 556 quarterbacks fall under this. Through 6 weeks, Deshaun ranks 558 in QBR, 565th in yards per dropback, and dead last in first downs. So, like, clearly, you can find all the stats against the blitz. The eye test is even worse. He looks like a fish out of water. But if you don't think Stefanski would have wanted to keep Joe Flacco, you've never been around a football guy. Like, it just makes no sense. These two Ivy League guys and this player. It zero vibe. Honestly, same thing with the defensive tackle they drafted in the second round, who already got in trouble for blasting his pregnant girlfriend, fiance, whatever. It's like they got a lot of cooks in the kitchen, and ultimately their owner is extremely involved. Now, I don't know these guys personally. It's not like I'm trying to cape for them. But on this specific story, there is not a coach in the history of the sport that wouldn't go to the bullpen if they could. Some things in life are, most of us, the overwhelming majority of us, answer to somebody. It's very, very rare that you answer to nobody. Unless you're the elites of the elites of the elites. And even then, somehow they get you to a party and they get you on tape, and then you answer to them the rest of your life. But, like, this isn't, Stefanski doesn't own the team. And last but not least on the coaches, Jim Harbaugh. He's so damn good, man. You know, the Chargers, it's for those of us that they kind of hold a special place, for those of us that just love football and have seen their great rosters over the years and just want them to be good. Love the uniforms. I have so many good friends that are Charger fans. They have a great fan base. It was just really embarrassing what took place over the last, 6, 7 years with Anthony Lynn, obviously with Brandon Staley. And it truly is amazing when you get a coach that knows what he's doing and basically guarantees you wins. Doesn't guarantee you a Super Bowl. Like, Andy Reid was never guaranteed a Super Bowl until they drafted Patrick Mahomes. But once you got Andy Reid in Kansas City, he immediately's got you Alex Smith. You were immediately relevant and competing to win the division and in the playoffs basically every year. And that was worth, well before the Super Bowls, a lot. And Jim Harbaugh, off a bye, goes into Denver, who's red hot, up 20-0 before you even blink at halftime. And the quarterback, who's kind of been banged up, looks healthy, and you're like, he's the best player on the field by a country mile. I think if you're the Eagles, if you're the Cowboys, if you're the Jags, if you're just some of these teams, this guy was ready to leave college football. He was over the NCAA and their just laughable rules and regulations that you kind of need to follow, you kind of don't, and once they hate you, they come after you. and he clearly was a mark for them. So he was going to leave, and he was there to be had. And the Chargers got a little lucky. They didn't really have that much competition. Now, I give them credit for pulling the trigger and hiring him, but you have to wonder if you're the Cowboys, if you're the Eagles, like you could have had Jim or competed to get his services. Obviously, there are other guys out there in Belichick and Vrabel who are just listen. I'm a little less hard on McCarthy. I do think he's a capable NFL head coach. I don't think he's as bad as sometimes the way he's talked about. Now, where he ranks, would I rather have Jim Harbaugh? Yes, I would. I think Mike Vrabel that would be up for discussion when you just look at the two resumes. But I do think Sirianni. Come on, what are we talking about? And I just think Jim is just. I just don't think there are many coaches in the NFL you would take over him. And he just guarantees you, like, I'm kicking myself because, like, the Chargers playoffs. Jim Harbaugh, Justin Herbert. The other thing Jim Harbaugh does a great job of, he hires well. He hires exceptionally well. I didn't know that much about Vic Fangio until Stanford happened. And then he brings them to San Francisco 49ers. I really didn't know much about Greg Roman. It's like this guy, Mike McDonald, Minter. These guys were just assistants for John. And those guys, Jack Harbaugh taught them, you're only as good as your staff. And now you watch the Chargers defense, you're like, God, they're fantastic. Well, where did he get Minter? From John. And I just think when you look at this Charger team, now they could be a little bit of a powder keg because, Khalil Mack, who's been awesome, and obviously Justin Herbert has been banged up. If you lose those two guys, you would be in major trouble. And they have an injury history, so it always kind of makes me a little nervous. But if those guys stay on the field, like this team's winning 10 games. I wanted to do a couple things really quick, just some awards from the weekend. I wanted to do a couple player awards because I just wanted to highlight a couple quick things. And I want to start with the Warren Buffett Award as just the best investment so far of the year. We've seen the worst investment, right? That'd be Trevor Lawrence right now. That was last offseason. Obviously, Deshaun would be the worst in the league, but Trevor Lawrence, just Warren Buffett, just a great investment, which I was looking at the numbers today. I'm like, this already worked. Like, you already got your money's worth as we sit here on October 14th. Like, it already worked. Now, you ultimately paid this price for the whole year and in the playoffs, but it could not have gotten much better through October 14th. The Baltimore Ravens gave Derrick Henry 2 years and $16 million. But as most NFL contracts go, obviously all that money's not real. They gave him a $7.7 million signing bonus and $9 million total guaranteed. They gave him $9 million total guaranteed. Right now, Derrick Henry is on pace for 1,995 yards and 23 fucking touchdowns. When you watch him play, I questioned this move. I'm like, I don't know. In that offense, how's it going to work? It works because Derrick Henry looks fantastic. Now, he's also on pace for a lot of carries. So you're going to have to balance. Like, they are not, to me, it does not behoove them to try to, we'd be cool with 1,500 yards because I need those legs fresh to make a run. But the one thing with Derrick Henry, where he really could help Lamar and Todd Monken, what they didn't have last year, slow the game down a little bit. We get into a playoff game against Andy and Patrick. Here's what we do. We control the terms. We run the ball. And also, if you get a lead, which they haven't had, obviously, in their playoff losses in the second half, if we can just be up 17-10 instead of the other way around, we just hand them the ball. And we go 1993 here. And that is, these running backs, everyone's overpaying for all these positions. Here's $50 million for this average right tackle. Here's $70 million for this, 60 catch wide receiver. I can get Derrick Henry for 2 years and $16 million, and all I got to give him up front is $7.7 million. And he could potentially give me, obviously that's projected. I would guess right now, if you said how many touchdowns does he end the season with, I'd go 16. That's incredible. The Chuck Liddell Award for just KOing someone and not giving a shit about them. Will Levis yesterday, who obviously had an all-time box score, turnovers again, 23 attempts, like less than 100 yards. Also had a touchdown where instead, because you're not allowed to do the guns, people don't like the guns, I guess. Even though one political party's going all in pretending they like guns now, it's a little bizarre. But ultimately, he did the Spider-Man webs because he didn't want to get a penalty. Well, Will Levis took out a ball boy yesterday, absolutely destroyed him. I looked over on the screen and the kid was on a stretcher on a on a cart. I was like, what happened? And then they showed the replay. A lot of times, and listen, it's a tough spot. I don't blame any player for running into any of these people on the sideline. You're running 4.5 40s. You can't slow down. You take people out. It's no one wants to do it. It's going to happen. Every single player. Usually, I would say when you're watching a game, when they take out an older person, a younger person, someone that's not like team personnel, not a fellow coach, not someone in a uniform, not a practice squad guy, someone they don't know. They always stand over and either try to help him up or like ask him if he's okay. Will Levis took out this fucking guy and was up and running back to the huddle so fast, it was insane. And he would have been, that's what you do in the UFC. You just knock someone out and you start celebrating. He just took this kid out and just ran away. The Sam Ehlinger, former Texas quarterback, who once famously said, "We're back." And Texas is actually back. But one guy who isn't just back, he's currently leading the NFL in touchdown passes with 15. He has a nice little 3-touchdown pass lead. Is Baker Mayfield. He has 15 touchdowns. And you watched him yesterday, and really all season, he's clearly, and I think they talked about it this offseason, that he got thinner. He's moving around dramatically better than he once did. I mean, it really is pretty impressive how much more athletic he looks than he did early on in his career. But he looks good, man. He really does. And I know he has 3, if you just look at his box score, 3 interceptions. Pretty sure 2 of those, got tipped. Pretty freakish interceptions. To me, there are difference in interceptions when you hit like a defender in stride and a ball gets tipped, goes in the air. Like I don't think right now he's got 15 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. That number could easily be 15-3. So I think Baker Mayfield, one thing that was cool being at the Oklahoma game was Baker Mayfield in that program, especially with younger people, is kind of like their Patrick Mahomes or their Lamar Jackson. His jerseys were everywhere. I would imagine if you saw someone under 30 wearing a football jersey, and now with NIL, you can put the names on the back. Mayfield jerseys outnumbered every other player that I saw. And really, it was just like a Kyler Murray jersey every once in a while. It was like a 20-1 ratio. He is beloved in that program. And part of the reason John Dorsey pulled the trigger on him, number 1 overall, was like, obviously he's talented. He can sling the ball, but it was like this swag, was like this kind of far of the way he carried himself. And maybe it's just the Cleveland Browns. Maybe it's like Jimmy Haslam. You can't overcome that. And you watch Baker Mayfield now, it's like he's kind of vibing like he did at Oklahoma. And in college, that fucking guy was awesome. He really was. He's one of my more enjoyable college players to watch throughout his, my adult life for the last 20 plus years. And once he got to the NFL and you watched him kind of move around, I'm not comparing him to Johnny Manziel, but he had this like false sense of like his athleticism, and he lost his confidence and just unraveled. And you just didn't know if he was going to get it back. And then he goes to Tampa, obviously has the good year, which was impressive. You watch him this year, I just think he looks better. Like he looks like a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. And he can have games where he's easily a top 4 or 5 quarterback in the NFL. And if you have that, like you're going to be really competitive, especially when you factor in all the skill guys that they have in the league. So props to Baker Mayfield because he's back.